Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your MC, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of kaleidoscopic things with microphones because I am a ring announcer and MMA cage announcer, and I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two friends who bring, dare I say, MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing first from New York, Mark Prio. What's up, buddy?
What's happening, boys? I'm feeling good. I got the Masters starting tomorrow. I got Yankees opening day on Friday, and I got this huge UFC card that we're about to get into on Saturday. So I got a nice few days lined up. But I do also want to remind any of our listeners who are boxing fans that it's also a big boxing weekend with Triple G and Ryan Garcia both fighting this weekend. And that if you are looking for great boxing coverage, you should check out our boy Tommy O'Neill over at Boxing on YouTube. MMM Boxing.
As in delicious boxing. Absolutely. I can't wait to check out all these fights. And now introducing
on here again in the somewhat near future at some point.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely to break down
I
those
definitely
fights.
want to try to get him on here for the Canelo fight.
And introducing Mark's interlocutor from Florida, the Sunshine State, the Nicaraguan nightmare, Omar Artola. What's going on, buddy?
What's going on? Ended up watching the Bisping documentary, like Mark suggested. That shit is out of control.
So good.
I don't know if I was the only one or if we all were under the impression that this man kind of had eyesight, but like not the best eyesight after that Vitor fight. And it kind of slowly deteriorated. And we got to a point where he couldn't see. But not since the Vitor fight was he basically blind in that eye.
I don't think anyone knew. He fooled us all. He fooled the whole world, man.
I mean, he didn't even want to talk about how he did it.
Yes.
He has a fake eye? So they took his eye out?
No.
So his eye is in there, but it's a dead eye, and he has a covering fake eye that he puts in as if it's a contact lens.
Yeah.
How many fights has he fought one-eyed?
Every fight since Vitor.
Since the Vitor fight. So since 2012. So between 2012 and 2018, I guess.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, dude. Dude, he won a UFC championship with one eye. One eye.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
He's a legend. That is the shit legends are made of.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fights.
And how many of those did he win? Like 8 of them?
7 of them.
Good.
7.
So good.
But
Bisping's
first
good,
he
man.
wins 7 out of 9. Then he loses his last 2 before he retires. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember watching one of those final fights and being like, man, he's getting tagged a lot on that right side of his face, man. I wonder if there's something still wrong with his eye. And there you go. He
There
had
is something
no
wrong
eye.
with it. It's not there.
To any listener of this show, whether you already know, like going in by this point, I'm aware of the Bisping eye story. I wasn't when he was fighting, but it does not matter if you already know the story. Watch that documentary ASAP. Put it on your to-do list. It's on Amazon. I believe it was just called Bisping, and it is so freaking good.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Well, I myself am coming off of my first event where I announced a WBC Pro belt, which was very cool. So the WBC is making a lot of moves in the Muay Thai world, and they're creating a lot of new belts. So I announced a fight that was for the first ever WBC North American Cruiserweight title in Muay Thai.
Sick.
Which was very, very cool. And this coming weekend, I am making my boxing debut. Not myself boxing, but I mean announcing an event.
I didn't even know this.
That would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know. My God.
Mike sticking out the long jab.
Way too old.
Yeah.
Now I'm fighting for the WBC.
And now I'm fighting. But I'll be with Star Boxing, which is New York State's oldest boxing promotion. Which is very exciting because Star Boxing also co-promotes certain fighters and events with the likes of Matchroom Boxing, which is exciting. I think at other big promoters as well. So very, very cool.
You are a jet-setting man these days.
Here we go. I know. Don't tell my wife. She's not happy. My kid's sick right now, so it sucks. Let's see. What are we doing tonight, my friends? We have some fights to preview. This is one of our rare preview-only shows because we obviously don't have any fights to recap or break down. So there will be no marquee, no name on the marquee. So we're going to hop first inside the MMA sphere with Omar, and then we're going to dive right into this entire card, UFC 273, Volkanovski versus the Korean Zombie. A lot of great fights. This is a deep card, my friends. And then we're just going to end with a little bit of trivia. All right? Probably going to be a quick little 3-hour show. What do you guys say? So that being said, let me throw it over to Omar. Omar, what's going on in the headlines of the MMA world?
What is going on? A rare first appearance right at the top of the beginning. All right, I like it.
You didn't get to settle in yet before handling the sphere.
Not even. Still moving. So let's go right off the top. We have just a couple of stories, nothing super crazy other than the very top story, which is Stephan Bonner's house was destroyed in a fire, unfortunately. There's no details as to how it happened, just that it's pretty much totaled the house for the most part. It was a 2-alarm fire, so 2 entirely different departments had to get involved. It took about an hour to fight that fire. He did somehow recently tell people that he managed to save the gloves from the Forest fight and the jerseys from Tough that were all signed by the cast. They're all like kind of covered in soot and stuff like that, but they survived the fire. So super dope. Yeah. A GoFundMe page was started. If you're interested in donating to that, definitely check that out. Tyrone Woodley donated $4,000 kind of right off the bat. Right now it's way over its goal, which is nice. They asked for $10,000. Currently it's sitting at $16,000. So hopefully that helps with kind of getting their life back on track. I can only imagine how crazy that is. It
kind of feels like you're gonna need more than that. But I mean, I'm sure they had insurance and all that. But
they probably, I'm gonna assume, just need stuff to kind of get by and probably get some stuff because they do have a child. I don't know how old the kid is, but there is a quote unquote juvenile involved. Next on the list, Chael Sonnen, a little update with him. His felony battery charge was dropped by the prosecutor, so he's no longer looking at a felony. But he's still facing 6 misdemeanor charges of battery, so there'll still be more court dates in his near future. But we'll see what happens with him later on. And Ben Rothwell was released from the UFC, so he'll no longer be facing Alexander Gustafsson in May. Nobody's talking about weird. Why. Yeah, nobody's saying
super
why.
Weird one. Especially that we got no reason, like you said, like just so out of the blue.
Yeah. And it was, and it seemed like Ben Rothwell's team knows about it because they were the ones who didn't want to comment on it in the first place. I wonder if it's contract stuff. It seems pretty fishy that no one's talking about it. That's usually when I start to wonder if it's contract related.
Yeah, he had become such a good upper echelon gatekeeper too. Like he would beat all the guys who didn't belong, and he would like give fights to the good guys, even though he would likely lose them. Like he was very much good at that role.
His style was so gross, though. Like
his what?
His style was so gross. Just so what looks very, very sloppy, but he was effective, man.
Yeah.
He made it work for him.
That awkward way he held his hands.
Yeah.
At 12 and 6, more or less.
Yep.
It's like, what was he doing? And then he gave...
he had the floppy hands.
I don't know if you saw what I did, Omar. He would do this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he gave some of the most cringe in cage promos ever.
Oh, the worst. Yeah. But I enjoyed the
good old Ben Roth.
He should go over to pro wrestling. He actually could do well, I think.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going. Kelvin Gastelum versus Duplessis is off. Kelvin is injured, so we just got that replacement for Kelvin, and Kelvin immediately injures himself. Duplessis is not happy. Duplessis is talking a bunch of nonsense.
Duplessis, that's right.
Duplessis is pissed.
Yeah.
He is talking a lot of shit, talking about what is Kelvin doing with only days to go, and he literally taking money out of food out of my plate and things like that. So Duplessis better get a rematch because
is
he's not
Kelvin
happy.
here's a question. Sorry to cut you off, Omar. Is Kelvin Gastelum the best bad fighter we've ever seen, or the worst great fighter we've ever seen? Do you know what I mean?
Weird question.
I feel like he has achieved such kind of like
worst great fighter.
heights. Omar knows what I mean.
Because I really think he could be champion, but Jesus Christ, it just doesn't work with him. And I really feel like he
champion of I don't know what, of something.
What happened? Remember after his last fight, we heard that he was getting with a nutritionist and he was going to get back down to welterweight. What happened to that?
Why didn't that happen like 5 years ago?
Well, yeah, I mean, we know.
Maybe he worked with the nutritionist. Maybe they were like, "We can't do it, bud. We just can't do it."
Maybe.
Come on, man.
But yeah, I was looking forward to that fight, to both versions of the fight. When it was him and Imavov, and then him and Duplessis. Either one would have been good. Sucks that fell off.
Yeah, and now it's so close that no one's going to replace it for Duplessis. So he's kind of
which is even worse for him because he was fighting Anthony Hernandez on this card, and when Imavov got hurt, he moved out of the Hernandez fight. So if I'm him, I'm like, dude, just put me back against Hernandez and get rid of the guy you just signed. But they're not doing it. So
yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. I hope they give him something, but they probably won't. That's
it's too late now. I think. Yeah, I think he's already off.
I just mean money. Just throw that boy a bone.
Oh, yeah.
But they won't probably. All right, next on the list, Ilir Latifi is also out again against Oleksei Oleinik. He will now be facing Jared Vanderaa at UFC 273 on April 9th. Devin Clark versus William Knight has been added to UFC Fight Night on April 16th. That will be at heavyweight when they're usually at light heavyweight. But William Knight is sure to be gigantic in that fight because he just is. So we'll be looking forward to that. Andre Fili versus Joanderson Brito has been added to UFC Fight Night on April 30th.
Why?
Caitlin Chukagian has re-signed. I don't know I feel like we touched on it last time.
Last week we said she must have, yeah.
Yeah, so she re-signed and is facing Amanda Ribas Fight Night at May 14th. Joaquin Buckley versus Abu Supian Magomedov added to June 4th. Ooh, I hope that was right.
Who that is.
Julian Marquez versus Wellington Turman added to UFC June 18th. That's a fantastic fight, actually. Wellington Turman, for those of you who may not be aware, is one of Glover Teixeira's golden boys, and he is kind of working his way to be pretty damn good. So very interested to see how that works out. Kyle Dawkins versus Roman Dolitz has been added to UFC Fight Night on June 18th. I feel like that's the second time they've tried to make this fight.
Might be
Is that right?
I'm not sure. I mean, it might be right.
Yeah, I think so. And then Phil Hawes versus Deron Wynn has been added to UFC's June 18th event. And then just a little bit of PFL news. On May 6th, they'll be having some fights go down for some of their tournaments. Kayla Harrison versus Marina Makhanakta. Nope. One more. Marina Makhnakina.
Remember when we thought Kayla Harrison's next fight might be against Amanda Nunes or Chris Cyborg? And now it's against Maria Makhanakina. That
One
sucks.
too many Kanikanikas. So yeah, that'll be happening. It'll always be fun for me to just watch Kayla Harrison fight. I gotta say, I just enjoy watching her just be
so
ruthless. But I agree, it would be nice to see her against somebody credentialed, somebody with a little bit of that hype behind them and the name behind them to give her some validity. But her performances are still nasty. Rory McDonald versus Brett Cooper. And Anthony Pettis versus Miles Price. All fights that should be worth watching. So that's all I got for you boys inside the sphere this week.
Oh, baby. Well, thank you, sir. Let us now dive right in to UFC 273. Boy, oh boy. With our previews, folks, if you're tuning in for the first time, by the way, thank you so much. Like and subscribe. Share this video, all the things. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, find us on social media at @andnew_MMA show. Thanks so much. For our breakdowns for fights that have already happened, we start with the main event and work our way down. with previews, we work our way up the card. So we're going to start in the prelims, or rather the early prelims, and then we're going to work our way up to the main event. So stick around. We usually go at a little bit of a faster clip with the prelim and undercard fights, and then we're gonna take our time. We're gonna luxuriate with with some of these big name fights at the top of the card. So let's get right into it. UFC 273 going down in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Veterans Memorial Arena. Of course, the names on the marquee of this pay-per-view are Volkanovski and Korean Zombie going head-to-head for the featherweight title. So, guys, let's start with the first fight of the night. Julio Arce taking on, welcoming Daniel. What is his nickname? Is it Willie Boy? Willie Cat.
Wiley Cat.
Willie Cat, right?
No, it's Willie Cat. I heard on one of the
Cat?
broadcasts. Yeah, Brazilian, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Willie Cat Santos, happening at bantamweight. Arce, of course, is 17-5. Pretty well-rounded skill set. 5 KOs, 5 subs, 5 decision victories. And Willie Cat making his UFC debut. He's 8-1. He's 27, fighting out of Brazil, of course. Of his 8 wins, half of them have come by knockout. And from the tape I've seen, the guy's got some skills. He walks forward. He has a lot of confidence in his striking. And I think he might be a handful for Arce. So, Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What's your assessment of this bantamweight clash?
All right. So Arce has been installed as the almost 2-1 favorite here. He is minus 195. Santos is plus 165. So not terribly wide. I am a little surprised personally to see Arce move down to the extent that he's being asked to turn back a debuting fighter here. And Daniel Santos does seem dangerous from what I've seen. He trains at a shoot to box, which always breeds aggressive fighters who are willing to take damage. He's a dynamic striker. He loves to spin. The guy's got 8 wins. His record's 8-1. 4 of them are by KO, TKO, and 3 of those 4 are from spins. 2 spinning kicks and 1 spinning elbow. So he's a whirling dervish in there. He actually uses the spinning body kick a lot from clips I've seen, and it's pretty nasty. So Arce is certainly going to have his guard up in there, but I think this is going to be a fight where his technique shines through. I could see a good first round for Santos while Arce tries to figure him out. But Santos hasn't been in a cage in over 2 years. He's had a big break here. So he may have some rust himself. And I just think that Arce is still a very underrated fighter and a really tough ask technique-wise to have to figure out in your UFC debut. So I think toward the end of round 1, Arce starts to settle in, kind of takes it over in the latter 2 rounds, dictates the fight, starts to pick Santos apart, and I will say Arce wins the last 2 for a unanimous decision.
Nice. Omar, what's your take? What's your assessment of Arce welcoming Willie Cat?
It's actually a pretty good assessment. There's some interesting things that I've seen with some of the debuting fighters here. They seem to be very similar models towards the people that they're fighting. It's almost sort of like trying to figure out who's the better version of who out of these fights. You know, Julio Arce's game seems very similar to the way Daniel Santos plays his game. It's just a matter of who's going to play it better and who's I guess going to adapt better within the fight. Santos seems sharp in there. He's a very, very dynamic striker. Arce is very good in there. I think we've all picked Arce one way or the other, at least within his last few fights. I don't ever count out Arce, but there's just something that seems like Santos could edge out Arce in the end. There's always that debuting factor. There's always, the lights kind of need to shine on somebody first. They might not perform 100% at their best. But I don't know if he'll have that issue, but I just think if I'm looking at the skills, just based on the skills alone, I think Santos might edge him out. I will go with him for a unanimous decision.
Santos by UD. Man, I really want to go with the guy from Queens, New York, Julio Arce. I mean, I was just there announcing fights a few days ago, so it's a special place. I mean, I also love the bantamweight division, which is well documented on the show, and I would love for Daniel Willie Cat Santos to make a splash. I'm going to go with Santos by spinning heel kick to the liver. sort of like his signature move from what I've seen to make a splash in his UFC debut to get the best of Julio Arce. So
That'd be a hell of a way to debut.
yeah, man. Let's go on now to the women's strawweight. Is this a strawweight fight or a flyweight fight?
Strawweight.
Strawweight. Okay. Another newcomer, Kay Hansen, is not the newcomer, is welcoming Piera La Fiera Rodriguez. How'd I do, Omar? How was that?
That's a good one. I like
Okay.
that one. That's a good one.
Thank you. Omar's fluent in Spanish for anybody who is unaware. Another South American banger from what I've seen. Piera Rodriguez, also similar to Daniel Santos, from what I've seen, likes to walk forward, strikes with confidence, trusts her power. Omar, let me send it over to you first. What's your assessment of Kay Hansen welcoming the Venezuelan?
Well, she definitely has knockout power, that's for sure. So we can definitely rely on her hands. The nice thing that I think is interesting is, again, she's fighting against somebody who, although she's kind of had her losses, is also not afraid to strike with her hands and kind of work her way in there. And it just seems to be like who's the better version of themselves in that fight. And again, I'm probably going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to assume Kay Hansen probably has, just based off of her name and the fact that she's been in the UFC for a little bit, I would assume she probably has an edge in the odds. But I'm going to go with Rodriguez, and I'm going to go with Rodriguez by unanimous decision.
Mark, even though Kay Hansen has almost twice as many fights on her record, Rodriguez is undefeated at 7-0. Kay Hansen, she's looking to get back in the win column after back-to-back losses coming to this fight. So what's your assessment of Kay Hansen welcoming Rodriguez into the women's strawweight division?
So you will be surprised to hear that Kay Hansen is the slight underdog. She is even money plus 100. Piera Rodriguez is minus 125, so slight favorite for her.
Okay.
I don't know what I think here. Kay Hansen has like a pretty big name for someone who has a 7-5 record in her pro career. I guess from what I heard the other day, she has some fame due to OnlyFans, apparently. Which
she gets busy on OnlyFans.
Really? I can't say I quite understand that one, but to each their own.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I will say that her being 1-2 in the UFC is better than it looks on paper. First of all, she should probably be 2-1 because I thought she beat Corey McKenna. And the one clear loss was up at 125, where she should not be fighting. So really, you could say she's 2-0 if you give her the McKenna fight at her proper weight class, which is 115, and that's where this fight is taking place. So really, you break it down, she has looked better than her record says she has looked. Her opponent, like you said, is undefeated, 7-0 to this point, has done well in LFA and on Contender Series. She's dangerous. She's got 5 finishes in those 7 fights. She looks to be a fierce striker, like you said, keeps pressure on you, looks strong. So I don't know. I'm torn on this one. I could see Kay Hansen having her wrestling be strong enough to get it done and control Rodriguez enough to kind of stifle her. I could also see her struggling to keep it clean enough, and that in those like chaos moments she gets in trouble with Rodriguez. So I don't know. I do not have a good feel. I could see myself go back and forth between now and Saturday. Got to pick it right now. I will say Kay Hansen edges a split decision based off wrestling.
Nice. I have go ahead.
I was going to say, FYI, Felice Herrig has an OnlyFans that apparently is focusing on her feet and feet things.
Felice Herrig?
I don't get it.
I read about it somewhere, and I was like, you know what? That's free goddamn money.
Felice Herrig definitely seems like she marches to the beat of her own drum. I will say that.
I mean, if you don't have to get naked and motherfuckers are going to pay you to watch your feet.
Feet, yeah. What if she doesn't care? She's like, it's just my feet.
I wish motherfuckers wanted to watch my feet.
It never even shows her face. It's not even her feet, someone else's feet.
But her profile is like, by the way, I'm Felice Herrig.
Yeah.
I'm kind of famous. That's a whole other like segment that we couldn't do, but probably never will do, is just like, I'm very intrigued by the whole women's combat sports, like OnlyFans whole universe thing. Like
it's very weird how many of them have dove into it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's an extra monetary stream, and if you're a young, pretty woman who's in super great shape because you train MMA and you're also like a quasi-famous MMA fighter, why not capitalize on that? But at the same time, it's kind of like softcore porn. But
I mean, to be fair, half of those pictures they probably would have posted on their Instagram anyway.
Right?
Right.
That's why every time I hear about this, I want to be like, I want to meet the people. I actually don't want to meet them. But I want to know who the people are that are like, yes, take my money for these pictures of you that I could see on Google. Like, I don't get it.
So my wife and I were watching an episode of SVU like a while ago that really left an impression, which was like the whole thing was, you know, it was sort of like this OnlyFans kind of concept, and they watch online and all these kind of things, and one thing got crazy or whatever. The point is one of the guys was talking about how he goes on and he does it for the attention, for like the connection that you make, because you do end up chatting with them. You can reach out to them and that kind of stuff. And I think that's the selling point more than the pictures. Maybe. Perhaps.
I think you can either pay to view their whole profile, but then you can also like pay per image that you want to look at, and you can pay to DM them.
Christ.
So it's like, it's
this
crazy.
Show is taking a hard turn to the left right now.
I know. All right, let's get back on track here. I'm going to take Kay Hansen over Piera Rodriguez. I'm going to say unanimous decision. I think she's going to get it done with wrestling. She's well-rounded enough, and I think her experience is going to be the difference maker in this one. Anything else about OnlyFans before we move on? I propose that at the end of the year we have the Thirsty Awards in voting on what female MMA star has the thirstiest Instagram account.
Oh, that's very easy.
Is it? Who is it? Give me your off the top of your head.
At least off the top of my head is Paige
Van Zandt.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, really? There's more? Wow.
I would say
Loretta.
I'd say Loretta.
Paige Van Zandt.
I'd go Loretta all day.
I don't know. But that makes sense knowing her personality.
Okay.
I don't know. Paige Van Zandt gets her friends involved in this. There is multiple women in these pictures. I'm pretty sure it's Paige Van Zandt. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, there are plenty of ladies who are vying for that crown. So, okay, let's move on. Another fight featuring a UFC debuting fighter, Josh Fremd, who has found success, I believe, at LFA and elsewhere. He is coming and making his UFC debut against Anthony Hernandez, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who hasn't exactly found great success in the UFC thus far. He's 2-2 in the UFC, but he is coming off of a win against Rudolph Vieira. So, Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What is your assessment of the newcomer, Josh Fremd, and what do you think it's going to be like matching up against Fluffy Anthony Hernandez?
So the odds are actually pretty close here, too. First of all, I've heard it said Fremd and Fremd by different people, so I'm not sure which one it actually is. I haven't heard it myself, but so whichever one, I'll go with Fremd, but if it's wrong, apologies. He is a plus 160 dog here. Hernandez is the minus 190 favorite. Hernandez is a guy who's had about 3 different opponents on this fight card, maybe even 4. I can't quite remember, but he has just been shuffling through opponents on this fight card. Now he gets Fremd on what was about 2 weeks' notice. He does have a very solid resume. He's 9-2. He's only lost once in his last 8 fights, which was to Gregory Rodriguez, who we've already seen look really solid in the UFC. He did well in LFA, which is a quality organization. But a short-notice fight against a guy like Anthony Hernandez is not an easy ask, simply because Hernandez is in there to scrap. He does not stop working. He does not stop trying to hurt you. He looks for your neck at all times. So if Fremd is not in his prime shape, the pace could be a lot. It's just a lot of fight coming at you on short notice. Plus, Hernandez was supposed to be fighting his most recent booking, Dricus du Plessis, which was a huge opportunity for him based off du Plessis' name. So you got to think he busted his ass all camp for this fight and that he's going to come in ready to go. So I could see Fremd maybe look good early while Hernandez figures him out a bit, since he didn't quite get to game plan so long for him. But I think the fight will start to turn Hernandez's way relatively quickly. I think that he's going to get Fremd out of there. Fremd has never been subbed, and Hernandez has never finished a fight by anything other than a sub. So maybe I'm being a little aggressive with this call here, but I'm going to go the other way, and I'm going to say that Hernandez wears him down, and finishes him by TKO in the 3rd round.
What do you think about the difference in attributes, though? I mean, Fremd is going to be towering over Hernandez, and at middleweight, he's a giant at 6'4".
Yeah,
Christ.
So he didn't So again, this is not. It's a debuting fighter. I can't say I've like watched the guy's fights religiously. From the highlights that I've seen, it doesn't seem like he's a guy that like relies on the length necessarily. And yes, he's a big dude and he's a good grappler. Will help him there. But I feel like Hernandez is such a good scrambler. He knows how to stay safe down there. We saw it against Adolfo Vieira, who he ends up subbing, which was insane. So I trust Hernandez to deal with that. And like I said, I think. Maybe it's like I said. Maybe it's tough for him early, and he's got to kind of figure it out. But I think I'll say that he will by within a round or so.
Omar?
So the thing about Anthony Hernandez that I think will forever have me messed up, especially after that last fight, is I don't know exactly how good of a fighter he really is. That last fight that he had, I genuinely still think that Vieira is the better fighter overall. But Anthony Hernandez is so damn tough that he was able to tough out that entire fight. Vieira gets gassed and basically chokes out. He basically taps out almost instantly once he gets that choke sunk in. And it was a fantastic display of heart from Anthony Hernandez to come back. One of the greatest comebacks we've seen. I think it was like upset of the year at one point. But it really wasn't. It wasn't like the best overall performance if you look at the fight as a whole, right? It was a great comeback, but that's because he was kind of getting his ass kicked in the beginning. So, with that in mind, Josh Fremd also seems to have the kind of style that, like Mark said, doesn't necessarily take advantage of his length, but he also doesn't seem to be the most crisp fighter either. He seems like there will be vulnerabilities and there will be moments for Anthony Hernandez or for Hernandez to catch him. To be fair, both of them seem, again, very similar in style. Well, they both will have their vulnerabilities. They'll both probably have their moments. I'm going to probably rely on Hernandez's finishing ability, and I think it's going to be a wild fight. It really could go either way. It might go Josh's way, but I will go with Hernandez by KO round 2.
Okay. Man. It's a tough one. Because Fremd looks good. His attributes really give me pause, but I do like Hernandez's scrappiness and his ground game. I'm going to say it's going to be a war, but I'll go Hernandez by decision. I'll say UD for Hernandez.
I think they both get rocked before somebody gets knocked out.
I could see that.
Okay. Moving on up this card in the heavyweight division. Kind of a fun one. Oleksei Oleinik, the Russian boa constrictor, 44 years old, a million fights on his record. I'm trying to add this up in my head, his wins and losses. 59 wins and 16 defeats. One
75.
draw. One draw. Don't forget that one draw.
76.
Taking on Jared the Mountain Vanderaa out of California. Oleinik, unfortunately, riding a 3-fight losing streak. Vanderaa not much better, coming off of back-to-back losses against Alexander Romanov and Andrei Arlovski. Omar, let me send it over to you first. What is your assessment of this clash of big boys up at heavyweight?
First of all, that number just made me check because I had to. 1996, November 10th, 1996 was this man's first pro MMA fight.
Wild.
Wow.
That's madness. So
That's crazy.
that's a fact.
Makes sense because he's 44 years old. So he debuted around 20, and there you go.
It's crazy. Poor Oleinik, he's had a ride to get to where he's at right now as far as to the fight. Latifi keeps pulling out of the fight. They had to reschedule. They were supposed to have that fight like I think a month ago, something like that, and they had to get rescheduled, and he pulled out anyway, so they should have just, filled somebody in anyway. But anyway, here we are against Jared Vanderaa. Oleinik is, listen, Oleinik is the kind of guy that I don't think is ever going to be champion at this point. I don't think we're ever going to see him at the top of the heap, but he's still a very dangerous guy. I think at best, he's probably going to be a very good gatekeeper. I think he could submit anybody on a great day. He just doesn't have a lot of those anymore. But even some of these relatively decent guys, I think he'd be able to submit as well. Jared Vanderaa isn't my most favorite fighter in the world. I think that there will be opportunities for Oleinik to take advantage of Vanderaa. And I think we see one more Ezekiel choke for the record books.
That would be dope.
Mark, what's your assessment?
Round one Ezekiel choke.
Nice. This one is a dead pick'em, minus 110 for both guys. Oleksei Oleinik, as I said, he's 44 years old. He's lost 3 straight. He's lost 5 out of 7. He looks old. But those 5 losses were Alistair Overeem, Walt Harris, Derek Lewis, Chris Dawkins, Sergei Spivak. And I would pick every single one of those guys to beat Jared Vanderaa without blinking. Jared Vanderaa has a career record of 12-7. He's 1-3 in the UFC so far. Granted, losing to solid guys also, but it's not on the level of those names. So the question just becomes, is Oleinik too old that he's not even going to beat a guy who's not good? And I'm going to say no. I'm going to say he's not too old. It's very short notice for Vanderaa. He's never a guy who's in great shape anyway. He's tough in there. That's probably his best quality. Mm-hmm. But he's been out-grappled before, and I just think Oleinik can find a way to do it again here. It won't be easy for Oleinik just because Vanderaa is so big, and he's going to be throwing power at him, and it's hard to trust Oleinik's chin these days. But I think within the first round, he gets himself inside, finds a trip of some sort, and that once down, Vanderaa does not get back up. So I, too, will say first-round submission for Oleksei Oleinik.
We are unanimous, gentlemen, in this one. I'm also going Oleinik by first-round submission. I think he's going to be vintage Oleinik and do what he does best, and he's going to find a way to close the gap, get a hold of Vanderaa, and do his thing. What is that choke called that he does?
Ezekiel
choke?
Ezekiel choke.
Sure, let's go with that. Ezekiel choke.
I love that technique. The fact that you can do that from Mount Bottom is insanity.
Yep.
Yeah,
I love it.
All right, moving on up this card in the welterweight division, Mickey Gall welcomes yet another UFC debuting fighter in Mike Malott, proper Mike Malott, that is. Let's see. Malott, coming off of a win in the Contender Series, looks good. He's a striker who trains out of Team Alpha Male. He's 7-1 as a pro. Mickey Gall, of course, has not yet lived down the fame of being the man who defeated Phil CM Punk Brooks. But he's 7-4 as a pro. No knockouts to his name, but has won 6 of his 7 wins by submission. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What is your assessment of Mickey Gall welcoming proper Mike Malott to the welterweight division?
So Malott is the first of the debuting fighters who is a significant favorite. He's minus 200. Mickey Gall is plus 165 on the other side. Malott is a very strange debutant in that he is only 9 fights into his career. Okay, normal enough. But he's been fighting since 2011. He fought twice in 2011, once in 2013, twice in 2014, once 2015, once 2017, one 2020, one 2021. So that is a very strange record. So you want to look at that at the end of it. He's fought 3 times since 2015. So it's one of the odder debuting resumes I've ever seen. But he trains out of Team Alpha Male. From what I read, he trains full time. So it's not like he's a guy who's in and out of the game. He just, I guess, doesn't take many fights for some reason. So I don't know. But obviously that's a good gym. He is a beast in there early. He's only been past the first round 1 time in that whole career that I just mentioned. He's a karate-style guy who also has jiu-jitsu credentials and has a variety of different finishes on the resume. So I see why he's the favorite. He certainly seems good. I don't get the inactivity. It's kind of hard to get a read on a guy like that because so much of his resume is from so long ago that like my brain wants to kind of only look at his last couple fights as like what his real resume is. And then on the flip side, we have our boy Mickey Gall, Mr. Win One, Lose One, who's on pace for a win right now, by the way, because he lost the last fight. So factor that in. But I think Gall's better than he gets credit for. I do. His losses are all the good fighters. Randy Brown, Diego, Mike Perry, Alex Morono. They're all good. He turns back the guys who are not on that level. And maybe I'm going to find out Malott is very good. Like I said, hard guy to evaluate. But I'm going to go with the underdog here. I think maybe round 1 doesn't look so hot for him, just judging by Malott's track record of how hot he comes out of the gate. So maybe some early trouble that Gall has to get through, but I think he's going to get a takedown in round 2 and end up snatching another neck. So I will go with the underdog here. Give me Mickey Gall.
Nice. Omar?
I'm going to go the other way on this one. I think, we've seen Mickey Gall not deal with being hurt very well. I will say he's never been finished in the first round, so he might have that going for him. But Mickey Gall has personally never inspired a lot of confidence in me, per se. He's always been somebody that seemed to talk a lot more shit than he actually is able to pull off in the cage. But Mike Malott is very interesting. Just off of his debut, his Contender Series fight, it was very, very immediate and very confident in the way he's able to just pull off these submissions. Like, there's no hesitation, and he's pretty sure he's got that in. And that's something we don't really see very often, and we don't see it very often consistently as well. But he does seem to have some kind of ability to pull some shit off in the first round. So, granted, these guys are not, at the caliber of Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall's been in there now with some big names, whether it's win or loss. He's got experience that at this point Malott does not have. But Malott also trains with some great guys at Team Alpha Male. That is a team that is full of fantastic submission artists, great jiu-jitsu guys that if he's not up to par, will definitely be putting him in his place. So it's a very interesting style. Like, they're again, very interesting style matchups because they seem like almost mirror images of each other. But I think, like some of the other fights earlier that I picked, I'm going to go with the debuting fighter here as well. I'm going to go with Malott by first round submission.
I'm also going to go with Malott by, I'm going to say knockout or TKO. I'll say TKO because I think that while Mickey Gall probably has superior ground skills, training in Team Alpha Male is going to prepare Malott enough to maybe neutralize Gall on the ground. He won his Contender Series fight in like 48 seconds with a nasty guillotine, and that's what Team Alpha Male does, man. They drill and train stuff like that. So I think he's going to be able to open up with the hands, and I believe he's known more as a striker than he is a submission guy. So I'm going to go with Malott. I think he's going to sting Gall, and he's going to jump on him. He's going to finish the fight. I'll go first round TKO. All right, moving.
Could
Yes,
very much see exactly that. I need Gall to get through the first for my prediction to have a shot.
I'm going to go up to now women's featherweight.
Now this card's starting to cook.
Yeah,
Bantamweight, by the way, but yes.
Oh, this is a bantamweight fight?
Yes.
We got a rolling boil going on right now.
They both have fought at featherweight. The Californian Aspen lad taking on the Coloradan Raquel Rocky Pennington. This is a big fight for women's bantamweight. Aspen lad, the much hyped, often injured, taking on the long tenured Raquel Pennington, who is only 13-8. I thought she would have had more fights on her record than that. But Aspen lad, the prospect, can we call her prospect anymore? She's 9-2 with 6 knockouts, 1 sub. She has never been submitted herself. Mark, what are the odds in this fight? And give us your assessment.
So the favorite is Raquel. She is -190. Lad is +160. I feel like that's pretty much
I'm okay with that.
Exactly what I expected here. How do you pick an Aspen Lad fight right now? I mean, seriously, how do you pick it? First of all, she's returning to 135, which is a weight cut that went absolutely horribly for her the last time she tried it. And secondly, the last time we saw her, she completely forgot how to fight. So could Aspen Lad win? Yeah, she could. She's shown us enough skills in the past that if that Aspen Lad shows up, then she certainly could win. Am I picking the girl who always shows up and knows better than most girls in that division how to win fights? You bet. So give me Raquel. She is so good at adjusting game plans and fighting in whatever manner or style she feels is required by that particular matchup. And I will pick her to do the same thing here. I think she keeps the pressure on Lad all fight. I think she adjusts it whatever way she needs to counter anything Lad starts to present. And I think she takes a unanimous decision.
Omar, what's your take? What's your pick?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, Rocky is not the type of girl that loses to just anybody. She's basically only lost at the cream of the crop, especially during the last half of her career. Anybody else they put in front of her, she's basically been able to knock back. Aspen Ladd, like Mark said, it's very weird to kind of judge where she's at. The last fight that she had, also, she didn't even belong in that division. She did it, I'm assuming, to try to get back in the good graces of the UFC for missing weight in the fight before, for canceling the whole event or her fight as a result of that fight miss or the weight miss. But yeah, regardless of the fact that she didn't even have to cut weight, she also didn't know how to fight. It was very weird to see her kind of come out and, she kind of reminded me of like what Chuck Liddell looked like against the last fight with Tito Ortiz. Like, what the fuck just happened? Where did everything go? What have you been doing?
Talking about the fight when they were old, when he came back, that fight?
Correct. It's bad. It wasn't great. But, the fight before that, she completely destroyed Yana Kunitskaya.
Yeah. But
Yana Kunitskaya hasn't been doing very well lately. So what does that mean? There's just, once you start getting into the MMA math of it, it gets very, very messy. Aspen Ladd had a lot of great potential. I used to be very high on Aspen Ladd. A lot of the inactivity, I feel like, over the last couple of years has been kind of her downfall, especially having to deal with the issues with her weight. And I think there was an injury somewhere along the way. Yep. So it hasn't been really great for her, and so it's become harder to evaluate where she's at. Rocky has just been so consistent, for better or worse, across, again, the important part of her career at this point, that it is hard to pick against her. So I'm going to go with Rocky, but I'm going to go with by unanimous decision. I don't think she'll be able to put Aspen Ladd away. I give her enough credit for that.
Yeah, I said decision as well.
Yeah,
I'll be a contrarian. I'll go Aspen Ladd, but I'll take her by unanimous decision. I think. Maybe
you love you some Aspen Ladd.
Do I? I don't know. She kind of gives me the creep sometimes with all of her hiking. I don't know if she has a home.
Have
you ever seen her Instagram? Have you ever seen her Instagram?
I never have, but you've referenced it so many times on this show that I feel like I have.
Yes, I'll send you screenshots. It's an experience. I think that Pennington is going to show some age in this fight. I'm going to go Aspen Ladd by decision. I think she's going to hurt her, but not get her out of there. Okay. Moving on up, back into the heavyweight division. Jairzinho, Biggie Boy Rozenstruik takes on Marcin Tybura from Poland. Rozenstruik, of course, from Suriname. Let's see. Tybura had a 5-fight win streak snapped by Mr. Alexander Volkov. And
5 fights, wow.
As I believe so, yeah. Rozenstruik, a very impressive record so far in his career, 12-2 as a pro in MMA, following a pretty illustrious career as a kickboxer. Rozenstruik is 6'2", 6'2", weighs in pretty close to the limit for a guy who's only 6'2" at heavyweight. Walks around at around 260. Tybura is also a big boy, walks around at about 250, 6'3". Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What is your assessment of this heavyweight clash between Rozenstruik and Tybura?
Realistically, I've always wondered where Rozenstruik's limit was going to be, right? After a certain point, when you have one weapon that everybody knows about, that there's more and more tape on, the more that you fight, the easier it is, I feel like, to game plan for it and to try to avoid those deadly shots. That's why I always feel like, even especially at the higher weight classes, that the more tools you have, the better off you're going to be against guys who are, one-hitter quitter guys. Rozenstruik was very, very dominant coming in just because he was able to kill everybody with one hit. Didn't matter, when he got it in there. It's just when he got it in there. The Ngannou fight was a complete, snooze fest. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Wrong. That's the other one. That was the Derek Lewis Ngannou fight. The Ngannou fight, he died. That's completely different. That's right. The Cyril Gane fight, from what I remember, wasn't the most exciting, if I remember right. Okay. And then, yeah. And then we also had the Curtis Blades fight as well, which he ended up winning. But my point is I don't know necessarily if he's going to have more tools to use against Tybura. I think Tybura is just a bit more well-rounded. He may not be able to knock out Rozenstruik with one shot, but he's definitely skilled enough to get 2 or 3 in there to kind of seal away the deal. He lost against Volkov, but, I mean, it is Volkov. Volkov also is probably a lot more technical than both of them put together as it is anyway. So I'm going to go with Tybura here. I'm going to do TKO round 2.
That would be big. That would be big if he does that.
Mark, give it to me.
So, odds. Rozenstruik, slight favorite, minus 155. Tybura, plus 130 on the other end. Real quick, I just realized I forgot to ever center you guys on my screen. So, if viewers have been noticing me staring all the way to the side of the screen all episode, sorry about that. We are now centered. As for this fight, I've seen a lot of people in the MMA world picking Marcin Tybura in this one. And now just saw Omar do it as well. I don't know if I'm missing something, but, man, I do not see it. I know Tybura managed to shut down other KO artists like a Walt Harris and a Greg Hardy. So I get the idea of his game working in this type of matchup. But, man, and I'm not the biggest Jairzinho Rozenstruik guy around, but let's not disrespect Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He is not those people. He's probably closer to Francis Ngannou than he is to Greg Hardy. When he hits you, you fall down, and it only takes one. So I'm sure Tybura will be smothering him against the fence. I'm sure he'll be trying to push him around a little, lean on him, and honestly, he'll probably be winning this fight until he's not. But I think he is way too hittable, and I think Jairzinho is way too patient at getting his reads and picking his spots for me to think that his fist doesn't eventually connect with Tybura's chin. I think it's a matter of time before he gets Tybura's rhythm and timing down, and that he will land something big and brutal when he does. I will say Jairzinho Rozenstruik, second round knockout.
I'm going Rozenstruik all day in this fight. I think his stand-up skills are superior, so I also am going to be going Rozenstruik by knockout. I'm going to say first round. Let's go for it.
I'm surprised that fight is not the one that got moved to the main card when the Kelvin fight fell off. They moved Pichel and Madsen instead, but I feel like Jairzinho. Plus, they love putting heavyweights on all the time, and here they have Jairzinho, who's ranked he's ranked 7 or something. I'm shocked they didn't put that one on.
Huh.
Anyway,
I would imagine they probably want to make sure that you watch Rozenstruik fight, so they put him on free ESPN.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right, moving up this card into the welterweight division. We have 2 dudes in both making their second fight in the UFC. We have Ian the Future Garry fighting out of Dublin, Ireland, coming off of a very impressive knockout victory in his UFC debut, taking on Darian Weeks, still looking for his first win in the UFC, coming off of a loss at the hands of Brian Barberena. Weeks is 5-1 as a pro, but Ian Garry is clearly the much more hyped prospect coming out of Ireland. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What is your take on this welterweight matchup between Garry and Weeks?
So the biggest favorite on the whole prelims, not the whole card, but the whole prelims, is our boy Ian Garry. He is minus 370. Darian Weeks is plus 290, which is interesting because I've read plenty of people since Gary's fight kind of doubting Ian Garry's star here, but I guess not Vegas. I'll do Weeks first. He has only had 6 pro fights to this point, so he's just as young in the game as Garry is, despite being older. He did look very tough against Brian Barberena. He's willing to wade in, take shots, but he's primarily a wrestler, and he couldn't even get Brian Barberena down, which Matt Brown didn't have such a problem doing, so that's not a great sign. And Ian Garry is good. Yes, he looked a little shaky in the early going of his debut, but let's not forget, the guy's 24 years old. He had a ton of hype. It's a huge card. It's in MSG. And before the first round is over, he gets himself a beautiful knockout. Like, I feel like some people act like he lost that fight. Like, he knocked the man out in the first round. So, he's going to be the bigger guy in there. He's going to have a 5-inch height advantage, 3-inch reach advantage, and I think he's going to style on Darian Weeks. I don't think Weeks offers enough danger or dominance in any particular area to shake Ian Garry off his rhythm. I'm torn on if I want to say a finish or a decision. Either way, I think Garry picks him apart and is clearly the superior fighter, even if it goes to a decision. But I will say Ian Garry, round 2 TKO. I think he can find a stoppage.
Omar, with Garry being the favorite here, do you see any kind of path to success for Darian Weeks? And if so, what might it be? Otherwise, what's your overall assessment of the fight?
I mean, realistically, just based off of what we've seen, the best course of action for Darian Weeks would be to either take it to the ground or to keep it up close in the clinch. Letting Ian Garry kind of get distance and keep his distance and utilize distance throughout that fight is what's going to be his downfall. Ian Garry has fantastic jabs, fantastic straights. His kicks are fantastic. It's just a matter of can he get them off at the proper distance. So if there's a lot of inside movement or inside control or even ground control, that might work in Darian Weeks' favor. I don't see Darian Weeks necessarily dominating this fight, to be wholly honest. I think Ian Garry has what it takes to keep the fight standing and keep that distance as well. And I do think that we're going to end up seeing a KO from him, and I think it'll be in the first round.
Yeah, it sure seems like the UFC is feeding Darian Weeks to Ian Garry in this one, looking for
this
Ian
is a
Garry
very
to
Paddy Pimblett-esque matchup right here.
Yeah, build up that resume. So I also foresee another very exciting, very impressive first-round knockout for Mr. Ian Garry, the future. And the UFC helping him build a bright future. Here we go, up into the main card. In the lightweight division, Vinc from Hell Pichel taking on Mark O. Madsen, the Olympian. Mark Madsen, of course, from Denmark. He is undefeated at 11-0. And Pichel, fighting out of California for the U.S., he is 14-2. Not too shabby of a record. I didn't realize that Pichel had such a good record. 8 of his victories coming by way of knockout. Not exactly a submission guy. He's more of a striker. No submission wins on his record. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What is your assessment of this very exciting lightweight matchup between Madsen and Pichel?
I also didn't realize Vinc Pichel only had 2 losses on his record. It's not bad.
It's because he fights like once a year. So he never gets any momentum, and therefore you never realize how good he is.
Yeah, he's beaten Jim Miller too recently, so it's pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, he's a solid fighter, man. He's always been a solid fighter. He's very, very tough. He's definitely not easy to put away by any stretch of the imagination, and he's well rounded. You're never really gonna like dominate him in one specific realm or the other. With that being said, he's also never gone up against an Olympian before, so there is that to keep in mind. Madsen is because I know Mark loves it. I know Mark loves it. Madsen's he's a great wrestler, man. I mean, there's definitely no doubt about it. The only thing that concerns me about him is how difficult it seems for him to start wrestling in the cage. There always seems to be that entry between him going from striking to wrestling that I don't know if he's worked out yet. I would hope that he has at this point, but I feel like that's his biggest opportunity right now. His hands are okay. They're nothing to scream home about. You know, he can defend himself, but it's not necessarily going to get him all the ball, right? His bread and butter is his wrestling, and if he can't utilize it to the best of his ability, it's going to be very difficult for him to like really get some success in the UFC. He's still undefeated though, so it's, you know, we can't shit on him completely. He's done his job. But the fights and the performances, you know, if you've watched them, have gotten progressively more difficult for him. And at some point, if he's reaching that wall right now, I mean, it's just going to get harder from here. And if Vinc Pichel is the guy that's, you know, the wall that he can't hop over, we're going to see it really quickly that it has to do with the fact that he's not able to take him down.
Okay.
I guess if I have to pick,
You do.
I'm going to go with Pichel by unanimous decision.
Really? Wow. Okay, Mark, give it to us.
So, Mike, based on your reaction right there, you may be surprised to hear that Vinc Pichel is the favorite in this fight.
Oh, really?
Holy
Very
jeez.
slight. He's minus 135. Mark Madsen is plus 110, so nearly even.
Okay.
But yeah, so Madsen, you have the up-and-coming, undefeated 37-year-old lightweight prospect. But seriously, the guy's a former Olympian. He's 3-0 in the UFC so far. We know what he can do. You can see that the man possesses skills. He can obviously wrestle. But like Omar said, I think that's a perfect point. He has struggled with the transition from striking into wrestling. He really, it doesn't look natural yet in there for him. As much as he's won all these fights, it looks like he wants to be like, hang on, let's switch to wrestling. Like he doesn't quite have that blend yet. He is willing to exchange in there for sure, like almost oddly willing to exchange for a guy who was a wrestler. He has a strong jab, but to this point, I don't think I've seen anything that makes me think we may not have already hit the Mark Madsen ceiling now that he's fighting like real guys. I don't think his skills are translating to MMA in quite the way that people thought they would. And Vinc Pichel is tough as all hell. The man does not break. He doesn't slow down. He's not going to let you do anything to him easily. And like you said, he's only lost twice in his whole career, and they're to Rustam Habilov and Gregor Gillespie, which, they're wrestlers, so you could say, oh, a wrestling matchup. But Mark Madsen ain't those guys. He is not those guys. And I haven't seen anything from him that makes me think he's going to win a true scrap with someone. Maybe this is the one where he shows it, but Pichel is certainly going to give him that, and I don't know that he's going to be able to hang. Pichel does not have great takedown D for sure. That's always kind of been an Achilles heel for him. So I'm sure Madsen is going to get some, but where Pichel excels is that he gets up really well. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think maybe Madsen wins round one because he gets some takedowns, but Pichel keeps getting up. Pichel keeps the pressure on him, makes him work, makes him tired, frustrates him. And I think by round two, the fight is already going Vinc Pichel's way. I think Madsen can probably stay safe enough just because of how strong he is in the clinch that he can kind of lean on him, grab him. So I'll say he makes the bell, but I think it's going to be a clear final 2 rounds for Vinc Pichel, unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'm going Madsen. I think I hear you. Yes, Pichel has good get-ups and good wrestling D, but I don't think he's gone up against an Olympic silver medalist in Mark Madsen. So I don't see him finding success getting away from Madsen's wrestling or getting up with Madsen on top of him. I'm going to go Madsen unanimous decision victory here. I think he's going to get it done across 3 rounds. He's going to do enough to earn that decision. Okay, going on. Oh, baby. Oh, baby.
You're getting good now.
Yeah, real good. This card just gets better and better. It's one of those cards.
Yeah.
Women's strawweight division. Mackenzie Dern takes on Tecia Torres, the tiny tornado. Man, I'm going to say off the top right here, I personally think this is a tough fight for Mackenzie Dern because Tecia Torres is real good. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What is your take on this women's strawweight matchup between Dern and Torres?
So it should be noted that Tecia Torres and Raquel Pennington are both, they're relationshipy, right? They are together. They are partners, and they were fighting on the same card together. So I would imagine that they've been training together, cutting weight together, and the like. So that usually tends to. I think they've done it before, and it's worked out for them before. So that should definitely be thought about anyway. But Mackenzie Dern is no easy out, man. Mackenzie Dern's grappling is a serious issue. Her hands are getting better. I was happy to see in her last fight that she's kind of started to getting used to looking when she's striking and not like closing her eyes and like, ducking her face and all that kind of stuff. She was, towards the end of the fight, once we started getting hurt and stuff like that, she started to go back to closing her eyes and kind of just throwing to the wind and stuff like that. And, bad habits come out when shit starts to get real. So I don't necessarily fault her for it or anything like that. But it does show that she's trying and that she's improving as much as she can, right? Tecia Torres, though, her striking is, we're talking about decades refined at this point. It's on a different level. Her dexterity with her legs is a different level. Her ability to throw kicks, the way that she can throw kicks, side kicks, especially to keep the distance. It's one of the reasons why her, as such a smaller opponent, has been able to succeed against girls who are taller than her, is because she's able to keep distance almost like a taller person with her side kick, with her oblique kicks. She's very, very good at managing her distance and then exploding in either with a takedown or with a combination of punches or high kicks. She's very, very good at transitioning. She's also one of, I think, the few really dexterous strikers who are also able to transition to ground games effectively and actually use her ground game. She doesn't just stay down there and just sort of hug somebody on the ground. She does a lot of passing. She does do a lot of striking from the ground. I even think she's looked for a submission or two in the past as well. I don't actually know if she's won by submission, but she's got one submission to her name. So it's not necessarily on the foreground of her brain, but she is somebody who definitely takes advantage of somebody on the ground once she does have them on the ground. I don't know if that's where she's really going to want to play the game with Mackenzie Dern, because I think even as good as she is on the ground, I think there's a serious disparity in skill level down there. So I think she'll try to keep it standing. I think Tecia wins this by unanimous decision, but I think it's a very hard-fought fight.
Okay. Mark?
So practically a pick 'em. They both are a minus number. Dern is minus 115. Torres is minus 105. I thought I was going to be alone on this, but I, too, am going with the tiniest of tornadoes. I think she's on an upswing right now. I think she looked like arguably the best ever version of herself in her last fight against Angela Lee. She was incredible. And you touched on it. I think she is a sneaky, difficult matchup for Mackenzie Dern. On the face of it, your mind wants to say, like, man, Dern is so much bigger than her. Her height, her reach, just her body width and size. Like, if she gets on top of Tecia, it's going to be hard for Tecia to get her off. But I don't actually think that's the case. First off, Tecia is so fast and agile that Dern may have a hard time even controlling her enough or closing that distance enough to get her down to the mat. But even if they do get there, I actually think it's the opposite of what I said when I laid that out a second ago. I think Tecia is so small that it makes her hard to hold down. Like, one small movement for her frees a whole hip. And she's so explosive in all her movements, too. So I think Dern's going to have a hard time controlling her. And Tecia is such a vet, such a pro. She's seen it all. I think she'll come in with a great game plan, movement heavy, use those side kicks, like Omar said, to keep the range, dart in and out of the range, which she excels at, always has. And I think she's good enough to stay safe in any tough situation that she ends up in for a minute or two. And I think that she wins a fight that she predominantly keeps as a striking match where she picks Mackenzie apart. So give me Tecia Torres, unanimous decision.
As much as I think it would be very cool for Mackenzie Dern to pull out some jiu-jitsu magic, I don't see that happening against Tecia Torres. And we are unanimous in this one, fellas. I am also going with the tiny tornado, and I am also going by unanimous decision.
One of those fights, though, I'm happy to be upset by, though. Like, if Mackenzie Dern pulls off some wild shit, like, I'm down for it.
It would be a big, big feather in her cap if she could beat Tecia, especially if she could sub her.
Yeah, man. One of the great aspects of MMA, man, is like amazing jiu-jitsu on display in an MMA context. You know, I have to say, I have tried at times to watch jiu-jitsu matches, but those are like so high level for me. It's like watching two snakes just wiggle into each other. But great jiu-jitsu used in like a full fight where just about everything is allowed, other than obviously like groin strikes. It's a thing of beauty, man. And I think it's really what it's meant for.
Some of the newer promotions have rule sets that really require guys to keep it moving and keep things super interesting. There have been grappling matches that are very stale because they don't. The rule sets kind of allow for a lot of stalling, a lot of basically like endurance fighting, where you're basically just trying to wait the other guy out and stuff like that. And those, it's basically like going to a golf tournament. It's just, it's so goddamn boring.
Watch it. Golf tournaments are incredible.
But some of these newer ones, like especially like Polaris, Eddie Bravo's has a very interesting like rule set. I don't think he's done one in a minute.
Doesn't he allow slaps and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. But there's also different things that he does too, where he starts people off in certain positions and then kind of has them switch to see if they can get a submission within a certain amount of time. And if they can't, then the other person goes. And if they don't get it, then they start in an even worse position. And it's almost like a sudden death kind of thing. So grappling has gotten a lot more inventive with the rule sets that make it very entertaining to watch as of recent. So it's been pretty fun.
Cool. So yeah, I'm going Torres by UD. Let's move on. Oh baby, to the co-main event. In the welterweight division, Gilbert Dorino Burns taking on Khamzat Chimaev Boars, which I believe means wolf or like black wolf or something.
Yeah, Chechen Wolf, I think.
Chechen wolf.
It might just mean wolf, but they call him the Chechen Wolf.
So cool. Man, oh man. Gilbert Burns, tenured welterweight. Record stands at 20 wins, 4 defeats, 6 knockouts, 8 submissions to his name. 35-year-old fighting out of Brazil. Khamzat Chimaev, one of the most hyped fighters we have seen tearing through the UFC in years and years. Maybe the most hyped since Conor.
No, I think I would argue he's more hyped than what Conor was.
Completely agree.
Way more hyped than what Conor was. I don't mean there's the rise of Conor, like that whole era that was, an amazing thing. That's not what Chimaev brings. But if you look at the line that Chimaev has right now with Burns that Mark will get into, Conor had nowhere near that on his way up. I don't know if he's ever reached that up until maybe Eddie Alvarez, but I doubt it.
No, I don't even think he ever did.
Yeah, but the hype that this kid carries with him is unseen here. This is the craziest thing I've seen in the UFC for a minute.
To that point,
hype by the definition of like fan hysteria and buzz and excitement and all that. Obviously not the same as Conor.
Right.
But hype in terms of hyping a man's skills and dominance, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Even more than Khabib, to be honest.
Yeah.
I agree.
So if you don't know, like Khabib, Chimaev is undefeated, 10-0, all wins by finish, either knockout or submission. 6 knockouts, 4 submissions to be exact. He is Dagestani, but he is actually fighting out of and from Sweden, right? Isn't he Dagestani?
I thought he was from Chechnya, but
Chechnya? My bad.
I think he is from Chechnya, yeah.
Yeah, but he is fighting out of Sweden. That's correct.
He's Russian-born, Swedish professional mixed martial artist.
Russian-born?
It says Russian-born. Oh, born in Chechnya.
Okay. Well,
either way, he's 10-0. Khamzat is 4-0 in the UFC with total time in the cage totaling like a couple minutes. So he has completely just bum rushed through all his opponents. And Burns obviously is his greatest test so far. I mean, every opponent has been his greatest test so far. So Mark, let me throw it over to you now, and let's get into these odds and your take.
So Gilbert Burns is a plus 390 underdog, basically 4-1. Wow. Khamzat Chimaev is a minus 530 favorite.
The sad part is that's closer than what it was like a week ago.
Yeah, I know. Because I feel like that always happens. When you have a fighter as established as a Gilbert Burns and he comes out with some huge underdog line, people, like I said the same thing. Even though I'm not going to pick him to win this fight, but you got to throw money on it because he's Gilbert Burns. So like that line is going to come down naturally, but it's still at plus 390. For reference, Gilbert Burns was around plus 230 when he fought the pound-for-pound best fighter on earth, Kamaru Usman, for the title. Plus 230. And he's plus 390 in this fight. And he's pretty much the same guy that fought Kamaru Usman. He hasn't gotten any worse than that guy. And Usman didn't even cross minus 300. He was like minus 290. Maybe some books he crossed minus 300, but Chimaev is minus 530. So just to illustrate what we're looking at here, the Khamzat Chimaev hype, as we just said, is real. It is the biggest hype I can recall in MMA, and we're about to find out if it's justified on Saturday night. Obviously, he's undefeated. 4 fights into his UFC career, he is yet to even be touched. You've all heard the total strike numbers over these 4 fights, which are 254-2, which is just silly. You can't be more dominant than Khamzat Chimaev has been. And in addition to how good he is, he's huge. He's going to have a 4-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage on Gilbert. He's so big. He's so strong. It's wild that he even gets himself down to welterweight because he's even big when he's a middleweight. The guy is just a savage. Now, Now, to be clear, no one that he has fought professionally in his life to this point is even close to the level of a Gilbert Burns. So this is a gigantic step up that he's taking. In Burns' last 8 fights, Usman is the only man to have beaten him. And he even had Usman hurt at one point, too, in that fight. So Gilbert Burns has the skills. He can crack. He has phenomenal jiu-jitsu, which could make things very interesting if and when this thing hits the ground. I think he needs to come out and crack Khamzat early and just make that tiny amount of doubt possibly creep in where Khamzat says, like, oh, wow, this is a different level. Because the mental plane that Khamzat is operating on right now is just to infinity. You could put him across from Ngannou right now, and he thinks he's going to smoke Ngannou. So I think you need to find a way to put that doubt in him early. Maybe it changes things a little bit. But when it boils down to making a pick here, there is no way that I can't pick the Kaiser Soze of MMA. I mean, I've heard enough ghost stories now from every corner of MMA about Chimaev, and I will choose to believe. I think it looks maybe more competitive than prior Chimaev fights have, for sure, just because I respect Gilbert's skills too much. But in the end, I think he kind of does his same thing. I can't pick Gilbert to get submitted because he's Gilbert, but I don't think he's going to see the bell, so I guess that means I'm going with TKO. Maybe like a big slam transition where Gilbert gives his back and Chimaev just kind of rains down on him from the back for a finish. I'll say second round TKO for Khamzat.
Wow.
You had a lot to say on that one.
Yeah, no worries. Omar, give it to us.
I don't even know what world we're living in right now. Like, this shit is just so crazy, because the reality is it almost feels disrespectful to pick against Burns, but at the same time, Khamzat just looks so dominant. But against guys that, like, Burns would also smoke, I feel like.
Agree.
Sure, of course.
So it's so hard to narrow down exactly how this fight is going to go. Burns, to me, Burns can't go in there knowing that this guy isn't strong as shit. Like, Burns has got to go in there ready to grapple, ready to kind of tangle with this guy. And I think the thing that people don't remember about Burns is how good a grappler he actually is. He might be outside of, the UFC, still one of the top grapplers in the world. Chimaev looks like he's just fucking strong. And it's not to say his technique isn't great. He obviously has great technique. But at the same time, he overpowers everybody that he comes into contact with. If he's able to do that to Burns, I don't think Burns has a shot in hell, to be quite honest. But, man, like, I don't want to pick against Burns. I really don't.
Did you just say that you don't think Burns has a shot in hell?
I said if he's not able to, if he's overpowered by Chimaev, then I think it all kind of goes out the window for Burns, right? Like, if Burns can't do anything on the ground, can't move on the ground, can't move his hips on the ground. I mean, again, this is a tall order. This is not something that I expect necessarily to happen. But if it does end up happening, then Burns is going to have a very, very difficult night doing anything to Chimaev. I just don't know if I'm completely sold on it, man. I'm going to go with Burns. I'm going to go with Burns by triangle choke, round 3.
Wow.
That's a lot of dreaming right there.
I tend to think he is going to be overpowered because, remember, this is a man who fought at lightweight for a long time, fighting a man who actively fights at middleweight right now.
I know. Burns just looks so fucking...
But Burns is strong, man.
Burns looks so
I love
jacked.
Burns.
Like if we didn't have USADA, I'd be like, Burns, what you doing? what you doing? Burns is big right now.
I find this fight difficult to pick.
Yeah.
And for guys like this that are hyped and on the rise and young, and when every next matchup is now the new toughest matchup of their careers, it's just hard to pick, man.
Yes.
And he just seems like such a phenom, such a world beater. I mean, I'm like, he's not going to do to Gilbert Burns what he did to Li Jingliang. he just sunned him. He just picked him up.
I mean,
like
if
like
he does,
a child. If he does that to Gilbert Burns, I'll be like, all right. It's
Who's
now I'm
going to have to
convinced.
run into a corner if he does that to Gilbert
Oh my
Burns?
God.
I mean, Gilbert Burns will probably be in that corner before you are.
No, I
In
said
terms
Usman
of-
is going to have to run into a corner.
Oh.
In terms of the attributes, I do think that is going to obviously lend a huge hand to Khamzat. But I just can't. I'm going to say this. There's no. I can't see Gilbert Burns getting blown away in this fight. He's not getting blown away. Even if he gets kind of eventually bullied enough and picked apart and finished, it's not going to be like, play this back next week. Watch me eat my words. I don't think this is going to be like a 60-second fight.
No, I don't.
I'm going to go Chimaev. Did you make this pick, Mark? I'm making it as well. Chimaev, second round TKO.
Yes, same pick. Yeah, it's very hard to evaluate because it feels like there should have been a step between Li Jingliang and Gilbert Burns. So it's like it's such a big jump that it's like I don't know what to think.
Right. I mean, he beat John Phillips. Then he beat Reese McKee. Then he one-punched Mearshart.
Yep.
And because of that fight was 17 seconds. Literally one punch.
There's not
Even
much
that,
to go
yeah.
on other than
That
he's
actually,
just
right,
a monster.
it only gives you, like, it's like, oh my God, the hype continues, but it also kind of gives you more question marks of like,
Yeah.
well, we don't really know much more about this guy because of this fight.
Right.
And then he goes out and he does what he did to Li Jingliang. And we're like, well, shit, maybe the hype is real. Okay.
Remember,
Anything else you guys-
remember I said this to you guys after he beat Li Jingliang and we were talking about who to match him up with. I said at that time, I was like, Gilbert Burns has been sitting at the top for so long and no one is fighting him that it wouldn't shock me if he's just like, fuck it, give me Khamzat. Like no one else wants to fight him, we'll fight each other.
You were right.
And that's why he's making this huge jump because no one between them wanted to take a fight. Well, Neil
Yeah,
Magny,
and
I still don't know why the Neil Magny didn't happen, but yeah.
And the real kicker is that Chimaev has nothing to lose in this fight. He has nothing to lose. His hype might go away a little bit, but chances are in his very next fight, he's probably going to murder somebody else anyway. And then he'll be right back to where we were anyway.
Well,
Gilbert Burns
he has a big mystique thing happening about him right now.
And
with a
the
loss
buddy
that all
cop
disappears.
thing with Darren Till is a TV show waiting to be made.
Yes.
I mean, he's definitely a personality, definitely somebody who would sell for sure.
Yeah, he is.
Oh man.
Okay, let's move on to the co-main event of UFC 273. In the bantamweight division, finally, we are getting the rematch for the belt. Aljamain Sterling, Funk Master, is welcoming back Peter Yan, No Mercy Peter Yan, into the title picture. If you don't know, Aljo challenged for the belt against Peter Yan and was, by all accounts, losing that fight, kind of getting picked apart, and it was going downhill fast for him. And then for some strange reason, Peter Yan forgot the rules of MMA. And Aljamain Sterling was down on one knee, I believe, or maybe both. And Peter Yan kneed him in the head, which is very much not allowed, which brought on an entire circus of controversy and talking points and talking heads. And, you know, he wasn't knocked out by the knee, but was he acting or did he take the W? You know, did he do the opposite of what Anthony Smith did against John Jones? He did kind of more what Diego Sanchez did. Not a great look for Aljo. Not a great look for Peter Yan. What did you say?
No, I was doing the Diego. Do I win?
Would I win? Yeah. Do I win? Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What's your take on this rematch? Who's going to win? What's your take?
So another fight with very wide odds here. Aljo is a plus 360 dog. Piotr Yan is minus 480 favorite. I'm curious if I'm going to be alone in this take or not. I don't see this as a non-competitive fight. I think with everything that's gone on with Aljo, from the DQ finish to potentially milking it, to the way that he's kind of chose to handle it since, and then to the injuries and the surgeries and the delays, I feel like the public has almost developed this take that Aljo is not good, and Aljamain Sterling is good. And I think he's a much better fighter than he showed in the first fight with Petr Yan. I really believe that. Don't forget, this is a guy that choked out Corey Sandhagen in like a minute, who Yan just went a hard 25 with. I know it's apples and oranges, but the point is that Aljamain Sterling is not to be slept on. I think his pacing in the first fight was way too frenetic, which he will adjust. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage, which we saw help him in the first couple rounds of that fight in his striking before he started to get kind of sloppy and tired. Plus, he throws a lot of strikes, which helps him steal rounds. And sometimes Petr Yan does not throw a lot of strikes until later in fights. So I think he could take an early lead. I also think it's possible he could have more success with his wrestling than we saw the first time. I really did not think he had a good game plan for closing the distance the first time. Normally, he has great game plans for closing the distance. I could see him come in with something that works more, that gives him smarter entries, especially now after getting to experience Petr Yan already, that maybe he'll have a better feel for what he thinks may work and watch the tape and everything like that. Now, I'm giving the Aljamain Sterling case because I feel like not many people are giving it. I am going to pick Petr Yan, but I think it's a close fight. I'm going to pick him because he's been active, whereas Aljo hasn't and is coming off all these surgeries and injuries, which is always tough to evaluate. And the other reason is just because of the way that Petr Yan builds as the fight goes on. I think he'll be in some potentially difficult spots, but he builds all fight long. His rhythm gets better and better all fight long. His pace never stops, and I think that's what happens here. He's so calm. He's hard to hurt. He's hard to throw off his game. His cardio is nuts, whereas Aljo's, bad pacing or not, did not look good at all the first time they fought. So I'm going to say Aljo takes 2 of the first 3 rounds. Maybe it's 1 and 2. Maybe it's 1 and 3. I think he's ahead early. But then I think 4 and 5 go to Petr Yan big time. I think that by that time he's walking Aljo down. I think it's a frustrated Aljo who doesn't really have the same horsepower he did earlier on. I think Yan has mostly figured him out by that point. And I think it will be 2-2 going into round 5, but already by that point, you kind of feel like the fight is over and that you know where the result is going. And Yan wins that round as well. 48-47, Petr Yan.
Okay. Omar, what is your assessment? Are you going with the fighter from Cortland, New York, or are you going with the Russian?
You know, I really like Sterling. I've always been a Sterling fan. I think one of the greatest things about him has always been his pace, his volume, and his submissions. His ability to be very opportunistic when he gets down to the ground. Just like Mark was saying, though, Petr Yan's not the type of guy that gets weaker as the rounds go on, regardless of how many shots are thrown. He seems to take a lot of shots to get your timing down, to get your motion down, to get your kind of almost like your game plan down, so that he can work from there. The other thing that's very interesting about Petr Yan is it's very difficult for him to it's very difficult to make him take a step back. Even when you're throwing things at him, he's countering things, he's moving forward. He's catching kicks, he's blocking punches. Whatever the case is, it's usually not him moving backward. Aljamain's game on his feet is usually dependent on people kind of shelling up, moving back, allowing Aljamain to kind of keep his distance. Aljamain's very heavy with the front teeps, with the jabs, and he tries to kind of double things up with jabs and straights and kind of mix things up that way. But he always tries to stay as long as humanly possible so that he doesn't get hit. I really feel like Yan has the ability to literally just cover up, put his hands above his head, and just Frankenstein his way forward through most of Aljamain's stuff, and really land some explosive things. I think the one thing that we saw that did work in the last fight were the leg kicks, and I think going back to that is probably going to be something that he should do early. I think if Yan invests in those in round 1, he'll see gains by round 2, just with leg kicks by themselves. I think that Sterling's style makes Petr Yan much better in the cage. I think that Petr Yan's probably going to be his kryptonite. As much as I love Sterling, I just think the tenacity and that strong Muay Thai stance that doesn't get pushed back is just not going to be the case for it. If I really believe Sterling was able to take him down and keep him down, I would probably lean a little bit more towards Sterling since that would be a good path to victory. But Peter Yan's hips remind me a lot of Aldo's hips, and people you just can't keep him down, man. So I can't really rely on that one thing to win an entire fight. So I'm going to go with Peter Yan by decision, but I think to Mark's credit, it will be a very, very challenging fight for both guys.
It's also my pick for fight of the night, I meant to say.
Oh, really? I think this fight already has played out, except for one mistake. So I don't think much is gonna change from the first fight, except I don't see it ending in a decision. I think that Peter Yan is going to finish Aljamain Sterling. I think he's going to, exact his revenge, so to speak. And I think he's going to stop Sterling. I think he's going to sting him. He's going to hurt him. He's going to swarm him, and he's going to make the referee step in. And I'll say, let's go third round. Maybe fourth. Let's stay with third. And, I just see, it's stylistically, like Omar said, I think his Muay Thai is just so rock solid. Oh, my God. And Sterling is kind of an unorthodox striker. And has found success with his striking in the past in past fights, but I don't see him getting Peter Yan to the mat, and I just see him getting just slowly worn down on the feet. He eventually gets hurt and gets finished. So
if he
there
can
we
keep,
go.
A volume heavy pace throughout the fight, he might be able to squeak it out. The problem is, in his fights previous to the last one against Peter Yan, his cardio was never an issue. In fact, I feel like his cardio was always an asset that people talked about. But that Peter Yan fight, I mean, he looked gassed by the middle of the second round, I think. And the first round, I think he threw over 100 punches, easy, and then just sort of slowed down progressively from there until it was just, until we got to the knee. But I wonder whatever was going on with him in that fight was just like a one-time deal. Like something was going on. He ended up fixing it, getting it done. I know he had neck surgery and there were some other things that he ended up fixing. So maybe that will play a real factor into it. Maybe Sterling really does believe that he has what it takes to beat Peter Yan, and that was just the worst of the worst days. And if that's the case, man, I mean, Sterling on his best day is definitely one of the hardest men to beat in that entire division by far.
Sure.
So
I'm very curious to see the cardio angle play out for Aljo, because he made the point last fight that he knew going into it that he wasn't feeling great, that he knew his cardio wasn't going to be what it normally was. I forget what he said. Something about that he ate something, or that his cut something. He said that he knew he wasn't right. But at the same time, it would be very easy to believe that a guy who fights with as much activity as Aljo does, and he has to fight that way because his style doesn't work otherwise, he can't be the weight guy, is gonna just naturally get gassed, having to be that active, but also fighting a Peter Yan who never ever stops walking at you.
right.
So it could just be a bad combo of styles. So I'm very curious to see which of those things it actually is now that we're going to get to see this fight again.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Aljo's physique, he looks like he's in crazy shape right now, like enormous shape. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see, this story kind of put to bed one way or the other.
The other thing I've noticed is that he has been supremely confident, which I have found interesting. Like, he is talking, like, all kinds of shit. Like, you are all going to eat your words. I want to hear everyone, like, tell me after this fight that they apologize for doubting me. Like, but, like, really going in. So he must be feeling like he's feeling pretty good physically right now to be talking that way. So I'm interested. We will see. I
noticed Matt Serra wasn't part of the training camp. Ray Longo seems to be, but Matt Serra doesn't seem to be part of that training camp.
I didn't even pay attention to that. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the main event of the evening. a fight for the gold in the UFC featherweight division. Alexander the Great Volkanovski fighting out of Australia, taking on Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie, after dropping a unanimous decision to Brian Ortega back in October of 2020, bounced back with a unanimous decision win of his own over Dan 70K Ige in June of 21. If you don't know, or if you forgot, this will be Korean Zombie's second shot at the UFC featherweight title. Remember, he challenged for the belt against Jose Aldo back in August of 2013. My goodness. Ultimately getting TKO'd by Aldo. A kick, if you forgot, which landed hard against Zombie's arm and dislocated his shoulder.
Yeah,
God damn, Jose Aldo. Volkanovski, who has only lost once in his professional career, came in the same. That loss came in the same year that Korean Zombie challenged for the featherweight title, 2013. Has not lost since, and now is on a 20-fight win streak. And this will be Volkanovski's third title defense. Omar, let me start with you this time. Korean Zombie getting another crack at the featherweight title against a champ who seems to be pretty unstoppable right now. What is your take?
Yeah, so Korean Zombie, how can you not love him? The crazy thing about Korean Zombie right now is that he has basically been in a 5-round fight since 2013, since that fight against Jose Aldo.
Wow.
Every fight since Jose Aldo has been a 5-round, either main event or whatever. So Korean Zombie has been the man for quite some time, even after his service when he came back to fight Dennis Bermudez and so on and so forth. That Yair Rodriguez fight is legendary, regardless of the fact that he got knocked out right at the very end. Korean Zombie is top tier. It's top tier. Alexander Volkanovski, though, man, is a beast. He might be, arguably might be one of the most well-rounded fighters in all of the UFC, in every division. His wrestling is fantastic. His striking is supremely effective. His grappling, just in any form, whether it's standing up or on the ground, is, again, very effective. It's been a while, I think, since we've seen somebody this well-rounded in a long time, and it's nice to see that not only has he found the wins with his style, but he's also been able to keep the belt a few times and really cements his legacy. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how the fight plays out. In my head, I don't see Chan Sung Jung having the tools necessary to beat Volkanovski. I think the pressure from Volkanovski is going to be too much. I think that Volkanovski's hands are very, very heavy and will land at some point. And I also think the ground game from Volkanovski is going to be just too much for Korean Zombie as well. We've seen Zombie have success on the ground when it comes to submissions, but he's not necessarily a jiu-jitsu phenom where we're going to see him, sweep Volkanovski, and put him in some dangerous position off of a move. Volkanovski is just too good for that. I just think Volkanovski is just at a different level, and that says something, I think, more about Volkanovski than it does about Zombie. Zombie, I think, I would pick Zombie against 99% of the fighters that are out there. Volkanovski, I think, is just one of the guys that I just don't think I can do it. I will say I think this is going to be a competitive fight. I think I would assume Zombie has the height advantage and the reach advantage in this fight by quite a bit.
1 inch, 1 reach. 1 height, 1 reach.
Okay. Zombie's striking is very good. He's very technical, but I just think Volkanovski's going to have what it takes to get it done, and I'm going to go Volkanovski by unanimous decision. A hard-fought fight.
Okay. Mark?
So if you thought you heard the biggest favorites on this card around minus 500 earlier, you would be wrong, because Alexander Volkanovski is minus 750.
Holy hell.
Chan Sung Jung is plus 500. So pretty wide. Did I ever consider picking Chan Sung Jung to win this fight? No, I did not. Did I think Volk was going to be minus 750? No, I did not. I guess he is finally getting some respect around here, because that is a big line. Size-wise, these guys match up pretty similarly, more similarly than I thought off the top of my head, and Omar obviously just did the same thing. It's just a 1-inch edge in height and reach for Zombie. He gets this fight after just having to get over an injury. They even delayed this fight to allow him to be healthy. So that's not terribly encouraging for a guy who's already a big underdog. He does have the right type of game to spring an upset simply because of how dangerous he is off counters, where he can clip you with something big, how fast he can snatch a sub at times. So he does have that finishing threat for sure that can let an underdog pull something off when they're not necessarily the superior fighter. But outside of the puncher's chance, I don't think there's a ton to break down in favor of why Zombie could win this one. I think Volk is going to totally pick him apart. I could see Zombie come out hot and we get like a crazy round 1, but Volk will find the rhythm. When he does, I think it's going to be all downhill for Zombie. Volk is going to move all around the octagon, which will frustrate Zombie and always has. Ortega's movement killed him. He is going to bury kicks into Zombie's calves and even thighs all night. And I think we're just going to see Chan Sung Jung start to break down a little bit come maybe like the 4th round. Volk has been talking a lot lately about trying to find a finish in there, and I think he's going to get it in this one. I will say Volk 4th round TKO. Hurts Zombie, maybe even with a leg kick in a way that makes him hit the mat for a moment, jumps on him, swarms him, gets him out of there. Volk defends his belt.
Okay. How could you not go with Volkanovski in this fight, man? Other than a rematch with Brian Ortega, which could result in a miracle submission like it almost did in their first fight, I can't think of a featherweight who's going to beat this guy right now. So
What? Don't disrespect my man Max like that. You don't think
they fought twice?
You don't think Max would at least make you wonder if you had to pick that fight?
Oh, yes. Okay, I'm sorry, Max.
Continue.
In this fight, though, you guys are both spot on. I can't add much to that. So I also am going to go Volkanovski by TKO. I'm going to go 5th round. I think this is going to be back and forth. I think Chan Sung Jung is going to be tough, and we're going to think he's going to tough it out to the very end. But I think Volk is going to pour it on in the 5th because he also has amazing cardio.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think this is going to be a war. Chan Sung Jung fights are all wars, which might be why he has main evented so many fight nights in the past, decade. They're like Korean Zombie headliner, in fight night after fight night. And that's the pick, boys. Anything else you guys want to say about this main event before we move on to some trivia to end the show?
I can't wait for this card.
Yeah,
Don't
great
think
card.
so. It does feel
I'm
like
gonna-
Volk has reached the point where he is due to finish someone because that man is going for the finish at all times. It's not like he's the type of fighter that's a decision fighter. It just hasn't happened. I mean, it happened earlier in his UFC career. I just mean as of late. And I think it's coming here, but we will see.
Yeah, he punched Chad Mendez's nose almost off of his head.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that one sucked.
So definitely looking forward to these fights. I'm going to be missing them because I'm going to be announcing some boxing matches in New York.
Wow.
So I'm going to be watching them on the rewind. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. If you're still with us, thank you so much. One last time, like and subscribe to the video. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel. That'll help us out. And you'll never miss an episode. And you'll always see our handsome faces. But the biggest thing that might help us is if you share this video with someone who you know who loves MMA and might not yet know about and new MMA show. You might make their day or their week. Shit. Of course, find us wherever you... Yeah, man. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, join the conversation. Hit us up on social media at @andnew_MMA show in all the places. Let us end with a little bit of trivia, gentlemen. Here we go.
Let's.
One day, we're going to have a dope little trivia 3-second chime or something like that. Here's my first question. I'm going to try to stump these guys, these motherfuckers. Who is the first fighter, multiple choice, who's the first fighter to win titles in 2 UFC weight divisions? Is it A, Dan Severn, B, Royce Gracie, C, Mark Coleman, or D, Randy Couture?
Pretty sure it's D, Randy Couture.
Correct.
Fuck you guys, it's Randy Couture. That was too easy. I knew that was too easy when I was picking it, but goddamn.
Dan Severn didn't look like he could be anything but a heavyweight. The big
Yeah,
bastard.
none of those boys could. What was your B choice?
Royce.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
maybe
he wasn't
him.
a heavyweight, but there wasn't even weight classes when he was fighting. But yeah, them other 2 boys weren't getting down to light heavyweight.
No. You know Dan Severn last fought in like 2013 or something? That's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know that.
Are you sure it wasn't more recent than that?
It might have been like 15.
I'm curious.
That's terrible.
2012. All right. But yeah, I remember he just fought forever.
I was looking up different fighters for questions, and this guy is not in one of my questions. But similarly, Pedro Hizzo fought all the way up until like 2015 or 2016.
Yes, I remember.
That is crazy.
One of the heaviest leg kicks I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, next question. Who was the very first UFC light heavyweight champion? Was it A, Bas Rutten, B, Ken Shamrock, C, Randy Couture, or D, Frank Shamrock?
Wait. Oh, Ken and Frank are in there. I got it.
Light heavyweight, as in the name of the belt, or as in 205 pounds?
Oh, I don't know. I just found the question on the internet.
Okay. D.
Omar?
I'll go with Frank Shamrock.
I should have let Omar go first.
God damn it. It's Frank Shamrock.
Yeah.
So there's a distinction. Was light heavy a different?
I believe that was max 200 pounds when he won that belt.
Wow, look at
So
you,
you had to
Mark.
be under
God damn it.
200 pounds, or max 199 maybe.
This is like Stump the Schwab with Mark and Omar. Mainly Mark. Okay, last question. This one's a fun
Oh,
one.
you got 3.
This one's a fun one. I think it'll be a fun one. I'm going to let this be closest to guessing the number. How many fights did Bas Rutten have in the UFC?
All right, I have my guess. Wait. Yeah, I have my guess.
I want to say like 4.
What's your guess?
1.
Omar, what's your guess?
He said
4.
4.
Oh, I'm saying like you're going with 4?
Oh.
Yeah.
Because you said, I want to say 4.
Well, fuck it. I said 4.
It's your final answer is 4. Both you guys are really close, and I had no idea when I looked this up.
It's 2.
And I didn't even, this wasn't even a question that I found on the internet. Just as I was clicking through different guys, Wikipedia pages and whatnot, I saw Bas Rutten's record, and I was like, holy shit. He only fought twice in the UFC.
Twice.
Who
So
was
the answer
other
is
one
2.
besides Randleman. Do you have it in front of you? I'm pulling it up as we speak. Anyway.
Pull it up. I had
I
it up
can't think of
earlier.
any fight other than the Randleman fight.
It's the guy he fought right before Randleman.
Oh,
It was,
he fought Kosaka. Yeah, I thought he stepped right into the Randleman fight, but I
So
remember
both
that
fights-
fight now that I'm looking at it.
Yep.
I not remember seeing it live. I remember watching it since.
And he
obviously I
won the
wasn't
belt,
watching
right?
live.
He beat Randleman for the belt for the vacant UFC heavyweight championship, and
Yeah.
later vacated because he got
And
hurt.
He did not beat Kevin Randleman.
Yeah, it was a split decision.
A terrible split decision.
And then he fought one last time in his whole career, like 7 years later. Fought one more time. He beat some guy with leg kicks in WFA.
Yeah, this was
But
this was
he
the
fought-
prime era that I was watching during COVID when I went back in UFC Fight Pass and watched all these fights. But I forgot that
Yeah.
he fought Kosaka.
So, like, everybody knows that Bas Rutten had like a great tenure at Pancrase. But then it's like Bas Rutten also fought in the UFC. And, I thought that he also, had a tenure in the UFC. He fought a bajillion fights in Pancrase and then just 2 fights in the UFC.
He fought in Pride as well, didn't he?
I was going to say, why do none of these say
Pride fights.
Pride? I feel like I remember him, or
I
no.
also feel like, was that not Pride?
No, I guess not.
Man, I really felt like he fought in Pride, but maybe my mind is just blurring it since he was the announcer of Pride.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I just figured he fought there and then just became the announcer,
But yeah, straight fucking pancreas his whole career.
Yeah. He fought in UFC 18 in 1999, in January of 99, and then UFC 20 in May of 99.
He probably liked fighting with his boots on.
He missed fighting with boots on.
I knew it wasn't a lot of UFC. But,
he missed kicking guys in the liver wearing boots.
With boots. Just kicking guys right in the fucking mouth with boots. Jesus.
All right. Well, folks, it's been a fun one, a short one.
I brought a trivia question for tonight.
Oh shit.
Jeez.
Because I thought that it might be a short episode. Really, it wasn't. But it is not a multiple choice. It is just a do you know.
Oh.
Petr Yan has lost to 2 men in his whole career. Name them.
Are they both in the UFC?
No.
Well, we know one of them just happened. So Aljamain Sterling by DQ.
Correct.
Is it a name that we know? Or is it just like,
We have
John...
mentioned this on this show before, and we have previewed and recapped this man's fights once or twice on this show before.
Wait.
Rice?
We know this because I remember this too, because he only had one loss going into the Aljo fight. And that one loss was a split decision loss. So I remember saying, like, in every one of his fights as a pro, at least one judge has thought he won the fight. So
Yes.
who was that split decision loss against?
I'll give you another clue. He also avenged this loss, if that helps you at all. Pre his UFC career.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm going to kick myself.
He's a member of the Bellator Bantamweight Grand Prix, Magomed Magomedov.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and the Yan loss was his only loss as well. He was 18-1 until very recently when he just lost to Rafion Stotts in Bellator.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
All right.
Well, folks, let's bring this one to a close. Let's put a bow on it. Have fun watching this great pay-per-view card this weekend. And tune in next week when we talk about the Thirsty Awards and who's going to be the who has the thirstiest social media presence of all women's. No, I'm kidding. We're going to join you guys next week and break down the fights from UFC 273. And until then, gentlemen, any parting words?
Mark, you should totally take your kid to go watch Sonic 2. Comes out on Friday.
I think we're going to. Not on Friday, but like maybe next week, because I think one of his friends recently watched Sonic 1, so he came home and asked me to watch it, and I was like, oh, cool, we'll watch that.
Dope.
So I showed it to him, and I had no idea the second one was about to come out, and then I just saw an ad today, and I was like, oh, shit, that was great timing. We can go see that.
Yep.
Nice.
So, yeah.
My adult ass will be there with my wife.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the fights.
Peace.
Peace.